Good evening, everybody. Tonight it is another episode of Mando Time. We are once more working on our suit of Beskar, and we've done so much work on the upper body. We've given so much love to those plates and that torso and those shoulders, and even the band braces now I've got getting ready to be fully detailed here. So we are going to be diving in on the leg armor tonight. We're going to try to fully assemble the right shin. And we're going to see if we have any time to do maybe some thigh armor. But otherwise, we are just going to go to town on the... Hello. Sorry, working on a new setup here. A lot of people were wondering what had happened to some of the top-down shots that I used to do on this channel a lot more. And the short answer is that I used to work a lot at the desk, and now I work a lot at the standing desk, so... whether fortunately or unfortunately, those had kind of vanished, but now I've got our second camera up on a jib here. So we're going to be going ahead and using that going forward. So let's dive right in. I've actually got most of this already cut out. It's a lot of circular pieces, as you might imagine, and of course one very knee-looking piece right up here. But then there's three pieces actually that have sort of a subtle edge to them, so we're going to go ahead and do some undercuts real quick. Now, for those of you who don't know, when we're doing undercuts, we're going to need a very, very sharp blade. I'll be making sure that my blades are sharp by, of course, sharpening them. So the idea with this is that we are trying to give a very subtle edge, not a terribly sharp one, to this guy, which is the very front of the shin. It's got sort of two sort of soft edges that we're going to try and carve into it by carving out a V groove in the back. Good evening, Melvin. Good to see ya. Let's see here. So I'm just going to take my template. I'm going to cut away where those lines need to go, and then on the back of it, not the front of it, but on the back, I am actually going to take my big old Sharpie. I tend to use king size Sharpies when I can, just because, you know, it's a big stick. It's easier to work with. And I'm just going to mark out where those lines are going to go. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my X-Acto, or actually I might take this is just my Husky box cutter. And I'm just going to cut out a V groove in the back of this following those lines. And I'm going to be careful not to go through the entirety of this piece. I just want to cut out sort of a V-shaped piece. A V-shaped sort of channel all the way through this thing. And it's okay if it goes off the edge with this one because it's going to be pretty covered. But that way we get these sort of soft edges. It'll get a pretty sharp bend to it, but it'll never get a super intense point. Not without getting so close that you might as well have just joined two pieces together. For those of you who've never joined in with us before, I actually really don't like doing V-grooves unless I am specifically trying to achieve a very soft edge, because I think that's all they're really good for. Now, it is possible to do V-grooves on the inside and get a very, very sharp edge on the outside, but usually it means one of two things. Either you have gone through and done such an intense V-groove that why didn't you just cut two pieces at an angle? It would have been so much faster to cut anyways, and it would have taken so much less time. Or you went back through and you kind of sanded over it again, which again, you're just spending a lot of time to try and make a very specific kind of shape that is, I think, better achieved with just two pieces glued together. Now, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing that I did, in fact, make a small error on this, and there is, in fact, a slight gap on the outside of this piece now. But that's okay, because it's very easy to correct, and it'll be entirely non-visible by the time I'm done. I'm just going to put a little contact cement in there, and in a moment, we'll just tack it together. It'll be super easy to do. I'd like to thank everybody who's coming out tonight. This is, of course, not our normal night. We normally do these on Thursdays, and we do Pepicure Tuesday on Tuesday. But this week, I have the distinct pleasure of getting to reconnect with some old friends through some D&D on Thursday evening. So we're going to be moving this to Wednesday, obviously, and I'm still trying to get a video out tomorrow, but we'll see. Very, very focused on that, as you might imagine. Now see, the top of the front of the shin here has sort of these grooves that sort of pop forward. So what I'm going to do is actually just mark where those grooves are. I'm going to cut them sort of like we cut the knurls in that one piece on our Sauron mace build. And this way we'll be able to pop these edges forward a little bit without making a whole extra set of pieces that would have been very, very complicated. There we go. And I'm probably going to cut a V-groove here as well, because it's so tiny and I want such a funky sort of ridge to appear. There we go. Yeah, that'll be super easy. And we'll pop that out a little further with some hot glue in a minute, because, of course, we want to get the cleanest edges that we can with this kind of stuff. There we go. And now, when I sort of push it forward, I get sort of a raised edge on the sides. It's just a little added layer of detail, and is in fact correct. So there you go. I'm going to set this aside as well. Put just a little extra contact cement on this piece here. There we go. I don't know if anybody else out there does the D&D, but I am sort of the resident DM amongst many of my friends. So it's been a little bit since I've had the sort of mental fortitude to sit down and, you know, put anything together. But we're going to be doing some really fun one-shots, and I'm very excited. Very excited indeed. And then lastly, there's this one piece at the very bottom of the foot that also has two sort of lines to it. There we go. We'll just mark that same way we marked everything else. Quick hit with the Sharpie. And then V-groove for that subtle edge. And this one we don't want to show at the bottom, so we're just going to make sure we don't cut all the way through down there. There we go. And this is definitely a skill that's worth practicing. I can't say it's particularly easy or that there's a crazy good way to do it without a specialized tool perfect every time. But it is a very, very fun skill to have, frankly. There we go. And with that, everything else has been cut out, so we can actually start to sort of assemble our pieces. I'm first going to plug in our hot glue gun so that we can raise up those edges. So that we can raise up those edges on the front of the knee, because this will wind up being a very sharp detail just as soon as we actually glue it into place. But I think we can start putting some layers of contact cement on some of the pieces that need to be layered together. For instance, this part goes right at the top of the knee. You can sort of see it down here. It's this silver gray piece right here. And what we're going to be doing with that is layering this piece on top of this top piece to give that layered, sort of angled look. It adds a lot of depth to that. And I think it's going to be very, very sharp. I can't wait to, because I can't quite tell if this sort of kneecap piece is supposed to be Beskar, but I'm definitely going to give it the old polish, because I think that this part really stands out amongst a lot of the leg armor, because most of his leg armor isn't Beskar. I think it's kind of easy to gloss over that fact, because most of the upper armor is, and of course that helmet is just so shiny, kind of distracts from the fact that, you know, he's still wearing a lot of leather and a lot of like normal like Durasteel sort of armor. Durasteel, like that's a real thing. So we'll add a layer to that. Set that aside. This hot glue gun's going to be almost ready to go here. I'm really excited because a lot of these parts are just sort of layered on top of one another, which is going to make this very, very easy to put together, because I'm basically closing rings and then gluing them together. And hopefully, if I've done my math and my homework right, this thing should just slip right on, which will be super nice. There we go. Just sort of getting things started here. Here we go. I don't know, is anybody out there really into D&D? Am I crazy here? Am I the only one who likes to overextend himself like this with crafts and DMing and other stuff? I mean, hell, I've used this kind of stuff to make terrain before. This is a very informative hobby, I'll tell you that. Go. Put a little contact cement on that there. Well, I tell you, it's been a crazy day. Wednesday is kind of my catch-up day most weeks, so it has just been a non-stop crafting extravaganza in here. I'm gonna have some really nice photos to post over the next couple days, but let me tell you, it's been kind of crazy in here. Ooh. Working up a thirst. Ooh. So very excited to see the response over some of our recent builds. Been very happy with seeing some of the things that we've been talking about start to sort of creep into the groups that myself and other crafters are in, because I think a lot of people have really taken to the idea of using Pepakura for foam a lot more than they have perhaps in the past. You know, people are really interested in the ideas of, like, you know, putting together builds in a clean but very rapid way that sort of technology allows us to do. In many ways, I think it sort of feels like the 3D printing of the foam world, if you will, that is not actually 3D printing. Okay. Then to kind of speed this glue up, I'm actually going to use my X-Acto as a heat sink here. Try to cool down this glue really fast. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. And that'll require almost no cleanup or sealing, frankly. I might end up putting a little bit of quick seal in there just because to make it perfectly smooth, but I think this looks really good. It's a subtle effect, all right. Here we go. For anybody just joining us, we are diving in on the lower shin of our full Mandalorian Beskar build. It has been quite the journey to here so far, but it's finally leg day, and we should never skip leg day. So, sorry, I'm contractually obligated to make several of those jokes tonight, so bear with me, please. Ooh. I'm actually, because I want to achieve a slightly more metal, like, angled effect, I'm going to take my Dremel in here and add sort of a flat front face to this bend. Yeah, there we go. Now it's got more of that angled metal look that typifies a lot of Star Wars stuff. There we go. Excellent. And that was pretty easy to achieve, too. I'm also going to put a little hot glue in the grooves of this one. Just bend it in slightly and help hold that groove. Ooh, ouch. Hot glue. There we go. We'll just hold that for a moment. And then when we glue everything together, it'll still have those subtle edges in there. It's little things in the shaping like this that really sell the final product. And I think that this is the kind of thing that some people miss when they go through and they start foam crafting for the first time. Is that they sort of round over or smooth out shapes that they really should be giving just like a little bit more attention to. Which is a shame. It is a shame. But fortunately, it's not too hard to correct in the long run. Let's turn that down. There we go. And drop just a little bit more glue into this piece right here. This is sort of a piece that sort of continues the line down. Oops, excuse me. Down like that. Ouch. I hurt my thumb. I did not mean to hurt my thumb, but I definitely hurt my thumb. Ow. There we go. Alright, well, we can start gluing some stuff together here. Bust out the contact cement. I'm going to unplug the hot glue gun. Hopefully. There we go. And we're going to just bust out our contact cement for that second layer on some of these initial joins. I like to use 2 layers of contact cement because it really affords you a very strong bond. It's very easy to tack together right away once it starts to cure. It's just very, very easy to use. It's terribly crafter friendly. Here we go. Just remember to use a well-ventilated area. I'm able to use this indoors because I have some crazy good ventilation in this room. You at home will probably want to take this either outside or to your garage. You know, that's be safe, folks. Seriously. This stuff will hurt you if you're not careful. It's one of the only reasons, honestly, that I'm not super... I don't try to encourage super young people to start doing this. Just because I think that younger folks have a tendency to, you know, be a little fast and loose with their safety precautions. And it can be bad when you hurt yourself with some harmful chemicals, you know, especially at a much younger age. So that stuff tends to mess you up for later life. Whereas I am an adult who can mess himself up all he wants. It's not like I'm getting any taller. LOL. Okay, here we go. So let's see here. Got about 2. And the hot glue also? Yeah, that's fair. Let's see. Alright, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, hello. Oh, I unplugged my heat gun because I was doing crafterly things. There we go. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and start gluing this together. Oh god. I'm a professional. Jesus. Okay, so here we've got sort of the top of the shin. There we go. And I actually went through, and when I cut this out, I cut this at sort of an exterior bevel. So it's got just a little bit of extra shape on that outer edge that I'm really digging so far. We're going to see just how well that holds up over time. Let's see here. I may end up rounding it off before I go ahead and finish it, but we'll see how well I like it. This foam tends to be pretty durable. I do like the HD foam for that, because you can do some fairly delicate looking things on it while still having enough durability that it'll withstand the test of time, which is great. I don't know, it's just kind of all over the map when it comes to foam. I've had people again ask what foam I normally use, and the short answer is whatever I've got on hand. I happen to have quite a bit of HD foam right now, so I've been using a lot of that. But in the past, I have very successfully used like Michael's House brand and other more mainstay craft store brands, because they work. They work really, really well. And we're kidding ourselves if we try to say otherwise. Are they perfect? No. But I'm going to be turning foam into something else anyway, so it might as well be XYZ foam rather than something that's going to really break my bank. There we go. I'll probably take my Dremel to the outer edge of that and just make sure that those smooth together perfectly. Have you ever glue a few pieces together and realized there is a mistake? Yes, I have. I have completely botched pieces before, which is always really fun, which is part of the reason that I tend to do this sort of like Lego method, if you will, where you sort of build up multiple small constructions, then glue them together. Because if I glue one small construction together and realize that that's not quite right, you know, all I have to do is make that small construction again. Whereas if I do the entire piece wrong, then I kind of have to start over. Or, depending on the way it's messed up or how I messed up, I'll just cut away a certain section and redo that part, because you know you wanna honor the integrity of like making the thing correctly, but you also want to make sure that you're not going out of your way to make a lot of extra work for yourself, because that's not good either. It's not helpful to anybody. You just doing extra work for the sake of doing extra work isn't worth anything, if you will. Like hell, I don't get paid more if I decide to do something in a stupid way. So why would I go through and do it that way? There we go. So this is sort of the lower section of the shin. It's got this front piece that has the angled edges on it, and then the rest of it is just this perfectly round piece that just gets glued to it. And that's the lower section of the shin right there. It's got a very nicely defined front section, and I will say the model that I'm working from has a very nicely defined sort of rightedness to it, if you will. This is definitely for the right shin, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm just trying to put that subtle bend of the calf in there. And I don't even need heat for that. I can just sort of crimp it in like that. You see, just sort of cups up like that. Sweet. All right, let's go ahead and do a second layer on this right here. As we speak, my fiance is actually in the other room. She's chatting with some of the other people that we're hopping on for D&D with tomorrow, because they're all going to be members of a security detail for a magical palace, and that's going to be real fun. But there's definitely a little bit of the let's get together and plan, try to stump the DM sort of sensation to it, and I really love that. It's not an us versus them thing, but it does mean that my players are like thinking actively about things, and I always love when that sort of stuff happens. Here we go. Oh, it's a great place to pause for a second. We've got some new patrons that I really wanted to welcome into the fold. Dustin Wells and Ruben. You guys get the shoutouts. You guys are here for those templates. These templates weeks in advance sometimes. So thank you so much for chilling out with us. Thanks for your contributions. I hope to reward them very soon with some more free templates. All right, this is sort of the back of this. I'm going to curve that out just a little bit. So most of these pieces are actually just sort of layered together. So this should actually go together fairly quickly. I'm basically going to stick all of these rings together, and then the middle ring layers on top of the top and bottom ring, like that. And that makes up the, that makes up the next section of this right there. So let's go ahead and close all these rings before we just add a little glue to make everything stick together. This piece is going to be really fun because from a painting perspective, I don't have to do the chroming on most of it. In fact, I get to do some both some leather effects and some general metal wear, which is going to be super fun to put together. Here we go. I don't know, how's 2021 going for everybody else? Everybody else hanging in there? We're already off to a rip-roaring start with all this talk of, like, extra bonus new COVID and whatnot. It's kind of crazy. There we go. I hope everybody's staying safe, at least somewhat. I know that things can be a little rough at times, but I do think the world is still generally a good place, if not a flawed place. Just hope everybody's getting by best that they can, at least. There we go. Let's plug this piece into here. This just layers right on top of it. Yeah, and there is a slight gap on the sides here, and that's okay, because all that is just a little whoop of quick seal, and then it's vanished. But the trade-off is that the construction of this has been really, really easy. Slow start, Melvin? I mean, that's fair. We're already halfway through January somehow, which is insane, because it feels like it's just barely past last January, because time isn't real anymore. And that's crazy. And then I am going to do one thing from a construction standpoint, which is that I'm actually going to sand down the bottom trailing edge of this to this lower piece. Ah, that's right, I keep trading this out. Go ahead and swap in the Dremel real quick while some of that other glue is drying. There we go. Doesn't have to be all the way down there, it just has to be a little closer to concentric with the circle beneath it. There we go. Yeah, 2021 is unsurprisingly just kind of more 2020 for right now because of the way the world is, and that's real. Alright, let's go ahead and add just a little extra glue to each of these rings before we stick them all together and start layering all the rings together. I do think it's very, perhaps not ironic, but very amusing that 2020 Chapter 2, Maker Geekbot. Oh my gosh. I saw that I think, God, I can't remember where it was. It was somebody turning their calendar, being like, at last, it's over. It's finally over. And rather than December, it just said, like, rather than 12, it said 13/2020. And I was like, oh boy. Oh no. Oh, that's real. Because it doesn't just end. I don't know. I think sometimes we get really bound up in this idea of, like, you know, the whole New Year, New Me thing comes out of nowhere sometimes because I think we get really wrapped up in arbitrary measures. Ain't that real? But it's like, I don't know, change feels steady. Change feels like it needs to happen over time. I feel that. That's too heavy. Too heavy for right now. I'm gonna focus on some good things. We redid some of our living room recently. That was fun. It's always fun to get to apply crafter stuff to other aspects of my life. Because I can't say I'm a carpenter or like a handyman really, but I do possess the skill set to some degree. So when I need to go through and do things like hang up a TV or put together furniture or, you know, drill into my wall, it's easier, I think, than the average, for me, than they say, like, the average Joe. Which is nice. It's nice that some of these skills are transferable, at least some of them. Obviously, I'm not foaming up my walls. Although. Alright, let's see here. Tip it, tap, 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 tap. I want to make sure that's staying down. Oh, that does not want to stick. Hang on. There we go. That was weird. It's not wanting to stay down. I don't know. I think this glue pot's getting a little old, which is why I have a new one. I just haven't opened it yet. I've been limping this one along. There we go. Actually, I tell you what, my days have been full of. Well, not full of. Obviously, I'm doing this mostly. But for when I'm not doing this, I'm not working at my other job. I actually managed to get my hands on a copy of Cyberpunk, which has been very fun and informative for another build I'm working on. But I've been enjoying the game. It's broken, don't get me wrong, but I've been enjoying it, which I think is the important thing. Here we go. Alright, before we move on from this, I am going to take 2 seconds and just make sure that these joins on the edges look better. So we're just going to knock them down real quick. Takes just a second on either side, but it makes all the difference. Oh, the year was 1778. How I wish I was in Sherbert now. A letter of marque came from the king, the scummiest vessel I've ever seen. God damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold. We'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of barracks privateers. Oh, I'll sit there, cried the town. How I wish I was in Sherbert now. For 20 brave men, all fishermen, who would make for them the Antelope's crew, God damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. On the king's birthday we sailed away, how I wish I was in Sherbert now. We were 96 days to Montego Bay, pumping like madmen all the way, God damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold, we'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers. Here we go. So now this is actually just going to glue right on top of that, like this. And then these three rings are going to nestle inside of each other. All of their seams are going to line up. Here, come on. Come on, you can do it. God, I might just do this with hot glue, because then I can just lay them in together and then hot glue them all right next to each other. Yeah, I might just do it that way. It should be easier, actually, by quite a bit. There we go. Yep. We'll stick together like that. And then this one fits right into the top layer. Come on, you can do it. They'll keep everything straight and true is what it'll do. Ha ha ha! There we go. Kind of wants to wooge around a little bit. The good news is that if you line up all the lines correctly, it'll just do the thing sort of automatically. And then you wind up with these bands here. And then the bands themselves also fit just on top of that there. And you can already see how it's starting to take shape. It's pretty straightforward. But I tell you, that kind of wants to separate there. Let's see. No, I think I will use contact cement, because that should help hold everything together even better. I'm probably only going to use one coat, though, because if I need to wooge it around, I want the bond to just be a little weaker. It'll still dry quite nicely, but I don't need quite as much sticking power initially because of the way this is bonded together. Which is terribly technical sounding, but in fact I'm talking out my butt just from experience. The terminology's all fake, but the lessons are real. There we go. Let's get rid of any excess glue on the outer edge there. Don't want anything getting stuck in there. And then the upper edge of the bottom ring will need a little glue as well. Here we go. I'm really quite happy with these templates for the Mandalorian's lower body armor generally. I've been really happy with how easy the construction is. It's, you know, it's still time consuming, but I would say it's as easy as it could be given what it is. If that makes any sense. Because I think that I've seen some template patterns that are perhaps a little simpler than mine, but they're missing details. They're just straight up missing parts of the armor. And that's something I can't abide by because it's not correct. There we go. Let's add some glue to this ring as well, and we'll start getting all of these things ready to go sort of at the same time here. There we go. Like I said at the beginning, this sort of devolves, if you will, into a series of concentric circles that just sort of get layered on or under one another, which is great. That's an easy way to construct things. It really is. It's what you want. It's what's for dinner. There we go. Ah, I did it again. One would think with all my power strips that I just have enough outlets for this, and I never seem to. I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced this, but I just never seem to have enough outlets to do all of the things I'm trying to do at once. It's just never happened for me. Too much glue right there. There we go. So we'll just go ahead and layer the middle ring onto the bottom ring, starting at the seam where they join together. Trying to be as even as I can going around this whole thing. I'm kind of using my apron to keep it from sticking together in places that I'm not ready for it to yet. There we go. And now it's all glued together all the way around. That's also going to help keep all of these edges glued together, frankly. Keeps the rings clean, keeps everything together. And the beauty of it is it isn't perfectly smooth. It's actually got a little bit of imperfection to it, which is one of the reasons I love this part in particular, because everything else has to be crazy smooth. Like, I'm going to be doing probably 2 to 3 layers of sealing before even starting Plastidip on most of the Beskar, but this part, this part's got a little bit of grit and grime to it, which is so much more fun for me. Not that that chrome isn't gorgeous. Like, if you haven't seen our Cylon build, go check out the Cylon build, because it's the same finish that we're going to be doing to this, and it is beautiful. I cannot lie. Go. And then, while that has been gluing, this has been drying, and we can glue it to the lower section of the shin. Ain't that fun? This one's actually just got the seam in the back, so we'll sort of set that up there. Start gluing around, just tacking it down as we go. Trying to make sure that it's pretty even overall. We're not getting super off. There we go. Just like that. And the beauty of it is that we can get a lot of different variants and texture here, but it's all going to be one piece. It'll be very, very simple to put on. I don't think it'll fit me because my feet are just the biggest feet ever. But they should be able to fit. Should be able to fit my client. No. Okay, so scaling full body armor is kind of the same way as, more or less, like mathematically, it's the same way as we did with Fate. I intended for that to be as informative as I could be for most pieces, and you're correct. It's the skills are very transferable. Like I said, you know, if you wanted to just base it off like your eyes, you know, you do the math that way. But let's say that I wanted to make a hand piece, and I had like the fingers, and I wanted to scale it so that this distance from there to there was the same in the model, because say the fingers are like splayed like that. The same kind of math. You just find a relativistic point on your body. So like, let's say elbow to wrist, and then you measured that point into the machine and sort of work it out from there. That's really the way you go about it. It's both easier and harder than it sounds. And there's no good way to explain why. But that is sort of just the way it is. Yeah, no, and it's nice though, because there's not, while there isn't just a fun, easy tool to make it happen sometimes, it's also worth noting that the tools that Pepakura especially puts out there are versatile enough that pretty much anything you could need to do in terms of scaling, you can do, except there is only one thing that you're not able to do in Pepakura that is a very good reason to get, say, a free modeling program like Blender, and that is you can't scale in 2 dimensions separately from one another. So I could not scale this shin and both make it wider but shorter. If I make it wider, it's going to get bigger overall. It scales everything proportionately. Which is why it's nice sometimes, especially with, say, my Iron Man armor suit. All of those pieces are separate, and so I can kind of base them off one another, but it's more important that they each fit me individually. Yeah, whoops, that I need a little more glue on the inside of this piece. I have not yet put my layer in here. There we go. I'm not 100% certain, but I think, at least the model that I'm working off the lower body here, I think this might be a Fortnite rip, believe it or not. Because those models are really good. I don't know if anybody knows, Justin Holtz, he works on their texture team, and he's a supervisor for them. He does an amazing job with all of these crazy detailed models. So much so that the community tends to rip them quite a bit. Let's see here. And this is going to need to go sort of on it. Edge to edge. Ooh, an edge to edge join. My least favorite join. That's okay. As long as there's enough glue there, it'll hold. And that's the important thing. Alright, let's go ahead and stick these circles together. Continue on our journey to many, many, many concentric circles. Here we go. Oh, for anybody who was with us on Tuesday, I have actually continued on that Sith Trooper helmet. It's looking pretty good so far. It's actually looking better than I thought it was going to. I really thought because so much of the detail was bound up in the texture, it might be a little wonky. But because I knew that going into it, I actually went through and made some decisions that I don't think I would have made normally in terms of like where I'm making the parts joins. I think it's actually helping the overall templates. I think it's making things a lot clearer, if that makes any sense. I'm sort of ignoring some of the surface details in favor of templates that really behave the way the overall shape of the helmet behaves. Here we go. Now this gets layered onto this piece. Woo! And then this piece gets layered onto this piece, and we've got a shin. Of course, these also get sort of skirted around that, and then this will be glued up here. We're almost done. This is actually looking extremely detailed. I'm very happy with the way this looks so far. Make sure all this is gluing down properly, gluing together properly. But let's go ahead and just start adding layers of glue everywhere this is going to need to get tacked down. Because we are going to finish this shin. So help me God. Oh, Father dear, and I oft times hear you speak of Erin's Isle, her lofty scenes, her valleys green, her mountains rude and wild. They say it is a princely land, wherein the king might dwell. So why did you abandon it? The reason to me tell. Oh, son, I loved my native land with energy and pride, until a blight came o'er our crops, the sheep and cattle died. The rent and taxes were to pay, and I could not them redeem. And that's another reason I left old Skibbereen. And you were only 2 years old, and feeble was your frame. I could not leave you with my friends, for you bore your father's name. I wrapped you in a blanket at the dead of night unseen. I heaved a sigh and bade goodbye to dear old Skibbereen. God, I have a terrible habit of starting that song way too low. I don't know, is there anything else anybody else wants to listen to? I'm not quite a jukebox, but I do know like some songs. I like to sing. Here we go. Let's go ahead and we'll glue this into place at the bottom here. While I'm waiting on song requests, I'll kind of reiterate something that I don't get into a ton, which is that I like seams that sort of join at a T. What do I mean by that? So sometimes I'll have a thing that joins like this, but to reinforce that, either on the ends or on the face of it, I'll have something that sort of runs counter to that. So in this instance, I got a seam in the back here, and this is going to join this at the sides to reinforce that on the inside, which is exactly what we're hoping for in construction like this. You know, I actually think I want to glue this into place first, because that way I can line up the grooves of this with the grooves above it. Yeah, there we go. And now I've got a really great start and end point for this. There we go. I'm probably going to sand down the inner edge so that this is a little easier to get into, to get the foot into at least. But now, when I heat this up, I can actually really wing out this lower portion to make it super easy to slide on and off. Just like that. There we go. Yeah, that looks great. Holy cats. Okay. I'm thinking, and what I'm thinking is that I should glue this to the lower section and then just stick the top on. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do this. And that's not really lined up with anything. Never mind. I'm going to want to glue the top section in, because the top section also lines up with the darts. Even not the darts, the joins along all of these circles. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. There we go. There we go. Gluing all the way around. You can see these lines line all the way up along the bottom here. And that's the top with its inner bands here. And then those will just get glued in, lined up with this. And here's where that sort of crimping we did earlier to get the sort of shape of the rounded shape of the calf in comes into play. Because now it'll line up super nicely with those upper rings. Oh my gosh, that looks great! Heck yeah! And that's how you stick it together. That's how this Mando shin comes together. Holy cow! Super happy with the way that looks. The only thing that's left is this piece, and I weirdly think that because it's got sort of a floating shape to it, what I'm actually going to do here is put a little bit of curve into it. I'm going to put a little bit of curve into it so that it lines up properly, but then I'm actually going to finish this up separately because I want to do the chroming on it. And then everything else will just be sort of glued on there. And before we end on this, I think I'll plug in my Dremel. We'll do just a little bit of cleanup on all these seams, and then we'll call it a night, I think. For just one time, I would take the Northwest Passage and find the hand of Franklin reaching for the Beaufort Sea, tracing one more line through a land so wide and savage, and make a Northwest Passage to the sea. Loving the F-boy faces on your thumb. What? Alright. Cool. I just try to find like the most animated faces from my videos. Unless you're specifically talking about the Cheers face on this one. That's 100% just because I found a really great shot in one of my videos. I think it's one of the funniest things I've ever done. That's something I think about a lot. It's like, I'm not terribly mannered mild in real life, but I have to say, I don't run my mouth off the way I do on these live streams. I really just kind of stream of consciousness non-stop speak on these, and that's not the way I am in real life. Again, I'm not here to claim that I'm super reserved, but I'm just not that way. Let's see here. Gonna knock down some of these edges. Alright, there we go. So, we're just about done on this. This thing, I think, looks really good. It's going to look even better once this thing is crested on top of it. I want to give just a quick shout out to my patrons one more time. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. If you yourself would like to support the channel, there are a ton of different ways to do so. You can join us over on Patreon, where you get templates like these, sometimes weeks or even months in advance. There's patrons-only templates as well, so feel free to check that out. There's a link down below in the description. Otherwise, if you like what you see, I do sell things over on my Etsy page. And, of course, if you want to, you are always welcome to subscribe. Because I'm a gross YouTuber person now, and that's the thing I have to ask you to do. But I am actually very excited because, you know, we continue to barrel towards 1,000. We're well on our way to 800. And, you know, we're going to be doing another really big giveaway, so stick around. But for now, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I have been Jaden, here for Foam Armory. Take care.